Hello, this is Nobby Kunert and welcome to my talk on tree size dependent ecosystem carbon fluxes in an Amazonian old-growth forest. In the last decades, a large number of studies have quantified the carbon cycling through forest ecosystems to evaluate the potential to act as a carbon sink. In this talk, I would like to focus on a few important parameters describing mainly the processes in the forest carbon cycle where trees are, let's say, actively involved. The first parameter is the total carbon uptake by forest ecosystems through photosynthesis, which is the gross primary production or GPP. The fraction of carbon gained through GPP and allocated to grow new biomass is the net primary production or NPP. The other fraction is respired back to the atmosphere by the trees as autotrophic respiration. At the ecosystem level, the fraction of GPP allocated to NPP can be expressed as the forest carbon use efficiency and can be calculated as NPP divided by GPP. Whereas the overall GPP and NPP of different forests have been intensively studied, the actual contribution of single trees to the overall forest GPP remains unknown. In this study, we wanted to focus on partitioning GPP into different tree size classes. With this, we also wanted to reveal demographic differences in productivity and carbon use efficiency in an old-growth forest in the central Amazon. To estimate GPP for different tree size classes, we used the method developed by Tang et al. 2006, who combined GPP estimates from eddy covariance measurements and canopy transpiration data from silent sap flux measurement. The math behind this method is simple. In a first step, water use efficiency is calculated by dividing daily GPP values through canopy transpiration. This daily water use efficiency is then related to vapor pressure deficit. The relation between water use efficiency and vapor pressure deficit is characterized by an exponential decay function. From this point, I guess you can already see where this is going. We can now solve the equation for a model GPP, which can be calculated from the known canopy transpiration for certain trees, or as we aim to do for certain tree size classes. All the necessary data to model GPP for different tree size classes was available from an earlier study. From the study, we had canopy transpiration and also eddy covariance measurements available. And the earlier study was on the ecohydrology of a terra firma forest close to the city of Manaus. In this study, canopy transpiration and GPP was scaled on 2 hectares of forest. Therefore, inventory data was used accounting for all trees larger than 10 centimeters in diameter. From this inventory data, we were also able to estimate the annual biomass increment and calculate annual NPP. In those 2 hectares, we assigned the trees to 3 different tree size classes according to a diameter-height relationship. Trees larger than 30 centimeters in diameter were assigned to be canopy trees with the assumption that those were not shaded by any other trees. The next smaller tree size class were the subcanopy trees with a diameter between 20 and 30 centimeters. We assumed that those trees could reach the upper canopy, but their crowns were at least partly shaded by other trees. The understory trees were the smallest tree size class with a diameter smaller than 20 centimeters. All understory trees were usually shaded by other trees. According to our classification of the 3 tree size classes, we had many understory trees that were more than 350 understory trees per hectare, but also more than 100 subcanopy trees, as shown here in the graph on the right, and relatively few canopy trees. In specific, we had 89 canopy trees per hectare. However, those 89 trees were responsible for the largest part of the monthly forest GPP, as you can see here on the left-hand side. And the contribution of the canopy trees to the monthly GPP is highlighted in black. The contribution of the subcanopy trees and understory trees to the monthly forest GPP here in the different shades of gray was comparatively low. Also, something really interesting what we observed looking at seasonal differences in the monthly GPP. The GPP peaked between June, July, August and October, what is the dry season in the region. Now to some absolute numbers. The total stand GPP was around 28.5 megagram carbon per hectare per year. And from those 28.5 megagrams per hectare per year, the canopy trees fixed about 21.5 megagrams per hectare per year. The subcanopy trees and the understory trees only assimilated about 4 and 3 megagram carbon per year respectively. The net primary production of the forest stand summed up to 9.3 megagram carbon per hectare per year. More than half of the carbon accumulation in the forest was done by the canopy trees, which accumulated 4.9 megagram carbon per hectare per year. NPP of the subcanopy trees summed up 2.65 megagram carbon per hectare per year, and the understory trees were at 1.8 more or less megagram carbon per hectare per year. Altogether, the forest was characterized by a relatively low carbon use efficiency, here seen in gray on the right side, with 0.33. This 0.33 is within the range of carbon use efficiencies observed for tropical old-growth forests. But now something more important and interesting is that the carbon use efficiency of the canopy trees was the lowest with 0.23 and increased to the subcanopy trees to 0.67 and the understory trees to roughly 0.6. This means that large trees in the forest are much less efficient in allocating their carbon towards new biomass growth than smaller trees in the tropical rainforest. Summarizing the results, we found that few large canopy trees per hectare drive the overall carbon fluxes, but despite being highly productive, large canopy trees are really inefficient in allocating carbon towards growth. Furthermore, a really interesting result was that forest productivity peaked during the dry months, suggesting an atmospheric moisture saturation during the wet season that limits productivity during the wet months. If you got interested in this study, please feel free to contact me via email or to follow me via ResearchGate. Thank you for following this presentation and enjoy the conference.